This is Arkies in the Beltway, your look at national politics and the Arkansans influencing the discussions. I'm Alex Thomas, Washington correspondent for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, reporting from the nation's capital. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of December 15th, 2024. An Arkansan is preparing to wield the gavel of one of Congress's most powerful committees. The House Republican Steering Committee recommending Representative French Hill of Little Rock as the next chair of the House Financial Services Committee. Hill served as the committee's vice chair under North Carolina Republican Patrick McHenry, who is retiring from Congress in the coming weeks. The Arkansas Democrat-Gazette caught up with Hill following the steering panel's decision last Thursday.
Well, I'm humbled to have been selected by my peers in the House to serve as the Republican leader for House Financial Services. I'm also humbled by virtue of the fact that there hasn't been a former banker or a former investment banking person serve as the chairman of the committee since 1908.
The House Financial Services Committee has jurisdiction over policies affecting banking, international finance, securities, and exchanges, as well as digital assets like cryptocurrencies. Hill, a former banker who oversaw Delta Trust in banking for 15 years, explains the committee's work in this way.
If I were to put a descriptor on the committee, I would call it the Access to Capital Committee. You can't start a business, you can't grow your business, you can't go out and buy a home for your family if you don't have access to available and affordable capital.
In the weeks leading to the panel's recommendation, Hill began putting forward his vision for a possible chairmanship, presenting a plan addressing community banking. The congressman telling the Democrat-Gazette he also has his sights on policies affecting digital assets, commercial banking, and affordable housing. The House Republican Conference does need to approve the recommendation. Hill would be one of two Arkansans to chair a House committee in the new Congress. Representative Bruce Westerman of Hot Springs will continue presiding over the House Natural Resources Committee. Representative Rick Crawford of Jonesboro withdrawing his name from the race for the top spot on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Crawford ended his bid before last Thursday's steering committee meeting, saying the move serves the conference's best interest and promotes unity among House Republicans. Crawford had been running for the chairmanship since March, hoping to succeed Missouri Republican Sam Graves. Graves has reached his three-term limit as the committee's top Republican member, but the House GOP steering committee granted a waiver allowing him to serve another term. Arkansans keeping their eyes on Syria and that country's future. Rebels bringing an end to the Assad family's 54 years in power, nearly 14 years after President Bashar Assad first launched violent attacks against dissenting protesters. Thousands of Syrians have died because of the war. The United Nations estimates more than 14 million Syrians have fled their homes amid the armed conflict. The Syrian Emergency Task Force is a non-profit organization that has been pushing an end to the civil war while also providing relief to affected Syrians. The task force has multiple offices, including in Little Rock. Muaz Mustafa, the organization's executive director, lived in Damascus before his family immigrated to the United States when he was a child. Mustafa spent his teenage years in Arkansas and graduated from the University of Central Arkansas in 2008. Natalie Larison serves as the Director of Humanitarian Programs and Outreach for the task force.
Alongside millions of Syrians who are now able to go back home to a free Syria, we are ecstatic. We are simultaneously shocked and may not even entirely believe our eyes.
U.S. officials have voiced support for Syria and a transition to a representative, accountable Syrian government. Task Force Board Chair Jerry Adams says the Syrian people and the international community have a lot ahead of themselves in reorganizing the country.
I'd say the next 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months are important, but also probably the next 3 to 5 years in terms of running alongside in a formative way to make sure that we do all we can to honor what has happened just over the last 12 days.
The task force played an important part in providing some American lawmakers with access to Syria. Representative Hill and 3 other House members entered North Syria in August 2023, the first members of Congress to make a known trip to the country since late Arizona Senator John McCain in February 2017. This week marks the final week of scheduled legislative business for the year, and there is plenty for Congress to do. The Senate and House need to approve a funding mechanism to keep the federal government open into the new year. They also must address natural disaster relief, economic aid for farmers, and programs under the Farm Bill. Representative Steve Womack of Rogers is a senior House appropriator. He says a continuing resolution gives the new Congress and incoming administration an assignment out of their control.
We'll have to deal with it in the next Congress and add that to the number of things that we're going to have to deal with and add to an already congested docket that we're going to try to pursue.
The House did make progress on its end-of-year to-do list last week. Congress's lower chamber approved the Annual Defense Authorization Measure and the Water Resources Development Act. The latter bill allows the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to conduct water projects and research. Womack secured one provision in that measure to complete a study on the reallocation of Beaver Lake. The congressman says the review is necessary, as the Beaver Water District experiences an increase in customers thanks to Northwest Arkansas's growing population.
That's going to stress the ability for the Beaver Water District to manage the water resources in such a way that we can accommodate this growth.
The Beaver Water District serves more than 375,000 customers in Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, and Bentonville. The Water District saying in a letter earlier this month to lawmakers, the study is important in ensuring there is water available to support the growing population. As we close out this week's episode, we end by recognizing a longtime Democrat-Gazette reporter. Bob Holt died earlier this month at the age of 65. Holt joined the Arkansas Democrat in 1981, developing a statewide and national reputation over his career through his coverage of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Fellow journalists as well as sports figures have honored Holt in the days since his passing, remembering him as a friendly and passionate sports reporter. Representative Westerman, a former Razorbacks football player, paid tribute to Holt last week with a speech on the House floor. We end this episode with a portion of Westerman's remarks. I'm Alex Thomas, and this has been Arkies in the Beltway.
He was a titan of the media industry, revered for his ability to get an answer to any question, all while maintaining the utmost respect from coaches, players, and his fellow reporters. Bob leaves a resounding legacy in his wake, and his mark in the Arkansas sports community will go down in history. Not only was Bob an unparalleled reporter, he was a faithful and loyal friend. Matt Jones, a friend and colleague of Bob's for many years, said, "If the world was full of Bob Holtz, it would be a lot better world, a lot kinder world, a lot more peaceful world. It would be a world that laughs a lot more, and it would be a much, much better place." My prayers go out to his family, friends, and all Arkansans mourning our loss.